Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, suffering made all the deeper. Iconic Nigerian author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie accuses the Lagos Euracare hospital of negligence over the death of her infant son. Her worries are echoed by Nigerians throughout the country. Also, Ugandan opposition leader Bobi Wine says that he will call for protests if there are any signs of corruption in Thursday's presidential vote. He's up against Yoweri Museveni, who's running for a 7th term. Also, kids in Kaduna State struggle with their return to school, but not for the usual reasons. They were shut down amidst a wave of kidnappings at the end of last year. Nigerian students are excited to see their friends again, but worry about safety remains. But first, an investigation's been ordered into the circumstances under which the toddler son of the award-winning Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie died at a leading hospital in Lagos. The writer has blamed the death of her 21-month-old twin son on medical negligence. The incident is the latest in a list of controversial deaths that have happened in Nigerian medical facilities, raising questions about the quality of care being provided. And Adichie's pain and frustration about the health system has been publicly echoed by many. Samuel Okoye brings us more.
The renowned Nigerian writer and feminist Chimamanda Adichie gave a disturbing account of the circumstance under which her 21-month-old son died. She accused Euracare, a leading private hospital in Lagos, of giving the child too much sedation, which resulted in seizures and cardiac arrest. The writer said the hospital lacked basic resuscitation equipment to take care of the child when his condition deteriorated. The bereaved mother described her situation as living the worst nightmare. Euracare Hospital, however, said it cared for the patient in line with established clinical protocols and internationally accepted medical standards, including the administration of sedation where medically indicated. Adichie's solicitors have served the hospital a legal notice to produce medical records regarding the child's stay in the facility. Nigeria has a long history of recurring cases of medical negligence. Many of these result in death due to inability of hospitals, including major ones, to provide basic care. The death of Adichie's toddler son has reopened the broader debate over healthcare standards in Nigeria. Many of Nigeria's best doctors have relocated abroad for better opportunities. Those left back home frequently go on strikes as they press for better working conditions. The inability of many Nigerian hospitals, including the leading ones, to provide basic care is responsible for the high level of medical tourism among Nigerians who can afford treatment abroad. Nigeria is not an isolated case. Many other African countries face similar healthcare challenges, with the citizens dying needlessly while their leaders fly abroad for treatment at taxpayers' expense.
Sam Olokoya there for us. Now, Uganda's in the final stretch for presidential elections this week, in which President Yoweri Museveni is up for a 7th term, and his main challenger, Bobi Wine, will take a second run at trying to unseat him. Now, Wine, the 43-year-old Wine, was hugely popular with young voters when he first ran against Museveni in 2021. And Wine still says that he was the one who won that vote and accuses Museveni and his administration of having stolen the 2021 election. Now, Wine has repeatedly been arrested throughout his relatively short political career, and on Monday said that he would be calling for protests if he thought that Thursday's vote was rigged. Many of his supporters say that they're also frustrated with the status quo.
As Ugandans, we are ready to protect our vote in case it is stolen. We are saying enough is enough. We have been ruled by Museveni for over 40 years. Now the generation is a generation of young people. Enough is enough. They are now making sure that they use security to rig the elections. We are saying no, enough is enough. Leave us, we determine our future.
Since I was born, I'm seeing President Museveni, but infrastructures are still poor, what. But now we have to change so that we can improve on our infrastructures. People die because of poor health, we are poor, we live poorly, we work hard, but we get few money. Eh? Why is that?
So for more on Uganda's upcoming vote, I'm joined now by East African political analyst Jervin Naidu. Jervin, thanks so much for making the time to help us break all this down. Now, first of all, we had a lot of frustration expressed there from Wine, from some of his supporters. Do you think that he's right to be sceptical about the credibility of this week's vote?
Yes, thanks, Georgia. I think it's very much a big concern. We saw in 2021 the state machinery operationalizing itself in a way to restrict opposition. We saw this in recent elections in Tanzania. So there are some cause for concerns. And the signs leading up to the election, Georgia, we've seen Mr. Kalugani, or as Bobi Wine is more commonly referred to, has been hindered. His protesters have been arrested. There are reports that up to 500 of his members from the National Unity Platform have been arrested. He's been harassed over the last year. His bodyguard has been tortured. He's also has been shot in the last 18 months. So there's some real cause for concern that the state will be operating any of its security apparatuses to target him and restrict the opposition so that Museveni wins another term.
So although we've so far framed this as basically Museveni versus Bobi Wine, whose real name's Robert Kyagulanyi, Museveni technically is up against 7 other challengers, but it's Wine that takes up the most space. So when we're talking about crackdowns, about possible repression, are Wine's concerns specific about his camp and campaign, or have you seen, or have there been signs of the squeeze being put on Uganda's broader political environment beyond Wine's efforts to unseat Museveni?
Yeah, no, as you mentioned, it's not just Bobi Wine. Museveni's long-term serving physician and former friend and ally during the Bush Wars, Dr. Kizza Besigye, was arrested in last year sometime on charges of treason. He challenged Museveni over the last 4 elections unsuccessfully. So he's been targeted. Other opposition leaders have been targeted. There have been journalists who have been targeted. So generally speaking, the entire environment is constricting. And this is, I wouldn't say funny, but considering that Museveni once said that, African leaders stay in power for far too long, here's him looking for a 7th term. So generally speaking, it's not just Bobi Wine. The other candidates are facing challenges, but given that Bobi Wine has the resources and the reach to possibly challenge Museveni and the national resistance movement, is more likely that he's feeling a lot more pressure. And we're also seeing signs that the internet might be shut down over the election. So Bobi Wine has been advocating for alternative measures for people to communicate. So there are some real concerns that we're going to see a Tanzania-esque internet shutdown as well over the elections, even though the government has said they won't.
Jervin, you mentioned there Museveni's expression once that he thought that African leaders stayed in power too long. That's just, when we look at his journey, despite the frustration being expressed by a lot of young Ugandans who've only known him as a leader, the fact is that he came into power 40 years ago as a freedom fighter against British rule. So are there still older Ugandans who see him in a positive light, or see him representing something other than repression and crackdowns?
Yes, most definitely. There definitely are older Ugandans and even some younger Ugandans who see him as a symbol of stability. As you mentioned, he took charge in 1986 after the very violent Bush Wars, the rule of Idi Amin, Multon Mobutu. So he has really ushered in an era of stability, from 1986 up until 2026, according to our forecasts as well as IMF forecasts and data. The Ugandan economy has steadily grown. It's one of the strongest growers in sub-Saharan Africa. So he has done a lot of good. He's brought stability, particularly within the Great Lakes area, considering what's going on in the eastern DRC. Uganda has been quite stable. The economy has been growing. And he has been advocating that him staying in power again for another term is stability. Stability, and with the possible oil project coming online in a year or two, it could see Uganda jump from a least developing economy to a solid middle income. So definitely there are Ugandans who resonate with Museveni, and they won't forget what he's done for the country, considering their very tumultuous history.
Thank you so much, Jervin Naidu, there giving us a bit of a breakdown of some of the factors feeding into Uganda's presidential election that's going to be happening on Thursday. Well, the new head of the UN's Refugee Agency says that he knows the pain of being ripped from all one knows. The former Iraqi president just taken over the UNHCR and headed to the Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya on his first official trip. About 300,000 people from across the region live there after having been uprooted from their homelands by conflict or climate crises. Our Bastian Renouy tells us more.
Only 1/4 of UNHCR financial needs for Kenya were met last year, and this figure highlights a broader global trend. There is a lack of money at the moment. Of course, the United States has reduced its funding since Donald Trump came in power, but other donors cut back as well. And it has a huge impact on refugees. Money is needed to fund food and water, among many other things. And the trend is even more worrying when looking to the future, according to the new High Commissioner.
We had the biggest problem of protracted displacement. It's just not on that we have people stuck in camps for years, sometimes more than a decades, and also to be trapped in a cycle of dependency on humanitarian aid. Our mandate as UNHCR is to provide protection, provide life-saving and humanitarian assistance to people in need.
Beyond the general situation, the new High Commissioner, Baram Sali, also praised Kenya. Despite difficult times, the country has implemented a new program aimed at improving refugee integration and access to education and jobs.
Visiting Kakuma, you understand the scale of the problem that we have. And obviously, Kenya has been quite remarkable and truly stands out as a model for protection in this troubled region.
But new needs are already emerging. Conflicts have been multiplying in the region in recent years. DRC, Ethiopia, Somalia, or even Sudan. Every time a war breaks, millions of people are escaping from their countries. And so money is needed to help them. Now more than ever, the UNHCR need more funding to help these people.
Well, Ethiopian Airlines kicked off a push to build what's being billed as Africa's biggest airport. The $12.5 billion build is aimed to be finished by 2030. The state-owned airline will design the 4-runway infrastructure project in Bishoftu, which is about 45 kilometers away from the capital, Addis Ababa. And finally, security has been upped around schools in northern Nigeria as some reopened on Monday following a 2-month shutdown. Many were closed in November as communities and authorities tried to work out how to respond to a wave of school kidnappings. Clem Valla with more.
Dressed in their uniforms, these Nigerian students hurry back to school. The institution, located in Kaduna State in northern Nigeria, had temporarily closed its doors in November following a recent wave of child abductions. Its reopening reassures the schoolgirls and their parents.
I feel safe going back to our school because I have teachers, I have elder ones that used to take care of us just the way they do in our house.
It's not an issue that you say you stop giving your child her all right to learn or to send her to school because you're afraid of her being kidnapped.
Last November, northern Nigeria was hit by one of the largest kidnappings of children since Chibok in 2014. More than 250 students and teachers from St. Mary's Catholic School in Papiri were kidnapped by armed men before being released the following month. In Kebbi State, 25 high school girls were also kidnapped before also being eventually released. These incidents highlighted the vulnerability of schools in a region plagued by criminal gangs and Islamist insurgents, prompting the Nigerian government to declare a state of emergency in the north of the country.
I have decided to declare a nationwide security emergency and order additional recruitment into the armed forces. By this declaration, the police and the army are authorized to recruit more personnel. The police will recruit an additional 20,000 officers, bringing the total to 50,000.
However, not all schools in the north of the country have reopened despite increased security measures. In Niger State, for example, only 4 of the 25 local governing authorities have given their approval to reopen schools.
That's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.